Some say love is like rain, sweet when it starts, but deadly when it refuses to stop. In a kingdom hidden between 7 hills and a river that sang at midnight, one man's love would tear apart everything his ancestors built. His name was Obaoluwa, son of the chief hunter. His heart was fierce, but his love was forbidden like a flame inside dry grass. Long before his journey began, an old seer, Mama Ireti, daughter of the moonlight, once called him to her shrine of broken mirrors and said, "Obaoluwa, your feet will shake kingdoms, but your heart, if left unguarded, will burn the very house you were sent to protect." He laughed then, young, stubborn, full of pride like a lion cub who had never tasted hunger. He should have listened. This is not just a tale of passion. It is a story of betrayal, banishment, and a return that shook the heavens. Listen well, because even the drums of the old world still remember his name. This is the story of the man who loved wrong and became a legend. In the heart of the village of Ile-Odan, there lived a girl whose beauty was like a sunbeam trapped inside a calabash. Adesewa, daughter of the high chief, promised by birth to the prince of a neighboring kingdom to seal an ancient alliance. But Adesewa did not dream of alliances. She dreamt of love, the reckless kind. And Obaoluwa? Obaoluwa was like the stubborn river after the rains, wild, free, and impossible to tame. Their love blossomed in the shadows. They would meet by the whispering river, where the waters carried their laughter downstream. Adesewa would smuggle roasted yam and palm wine wrapped inside old cloths, feeding Obaoluwa like a wife feeds her husband in secret. They built a secret spot behind the river bend where the silk cotton trees arched like old women protecting their children. There, they spoke of dreams bigger than villages. There, they wove promises as fragile as spider webs. They ran barefoot through moonlit fields, splashing each other with river water, laughing like the world belonged to them. But secrets, like smoke, cannot be hidden for long. One careless touch at the festival of new yams, one lingering glance, one missing basket of food was traced back to Adesewa's hand, and the village elder's suspicion grew. Behind the shadows, Adetokunbo, Obaoluwa's own blood, sharpened his jealousy like a hunter's knife. It was Adetokunbo who whispered to the high chief. It was Adetokunbo who led the guards to their secret spot one forbidden night. And it was Adetokunbo who would later betray them again, selling secrets to a neighboring village, sowing the seeds of a war yet to come. "Betrayal," they cried, "desecration, the penalty, banishment." To love where love is forbidden is to dance barefoot on broken glass. Obaoluwa would soon learn. The drums of Ile-Odan did not beat for lovers. They beat for law. The morning of his judgment came with a sky so grey, even the sun refused to watch. They dragged Obaoluwa to the village square, hands tied, pride bleeding. Adesewa wept till her voice cracked like a dry riverbed, but no one listened. The elder's words fell like stones. "Leave, son of the hunter. Go where your love can feed you, for here it will only bury you." Even Mama Ireti, wrapped in her shawl of faded cowries, watched from the shadows. Her mouth tight, her eyes clouded with sorrow. For she had seen this day, and she knew sometimes the seed of greatness must first rot before it can grow. And so, with nothing but the clothes on his back and the fire of betrayal in his chest, Obaoluwa walked into the forest where even spirits feared to tread. Some say he vanished like a bird swallowed by the clouds. Some say the gods themselves hid him, nursing his wounded spirit. But those who truly listen, those who lean close when the night drums start to beat, they know Obaoluwa was only beginning his journey. Far away from Ile Odan, in the cold belly of the forest, Obaoluwa faced creatures and curses that would break the bones of ordinary men. But he was no ordinary man, and while the village danced and forgot him, something darker, something terrible was coming. A war, a reckoning, a calling only one man could answer, if he was strong enough to survive the night. Exile is not just the absence of home, it is a slow burning away of hope, like a lone firefly swallowed by a storm. Obaoluwa wandered into the forest of whispers, where the trees did not sway to the wind, but to the breath of ancient spirits. Here, the sun forgot to rise. Here, even the gods averted their eyes. They had banished him. But in doing so, they had unleashed something the earth itself could not silence. The forest greeted him not with welcome, but with warnings. Snakes that slathered like gossiping tongues, shadows that stretched longer than their owners. Hunger gnawed at Obaoluwa's belly like rats on a sacred drum. Days melted into nights, nights into madness. At times he thought he heard Adesewa's voice, soft, calling, like a river singing to lost travelers. But it was only the wind, mocking him. But the forest was not done with him. It was just beginning to tear at his very soul. First came the trial of the mountain storm. A tempest rose so fierce that it shook the earth, and for 2 full days, Obaoluwa was tossed by winds that howled like the tortured spirits of warriors long dead. His body battered, his strength almost gone, he climbed, climbing as if the storm itself was his enemy. When the winds died down, he was left standing atop a broken peak, a warrior tempered by wind and stone. Next, the trial of the hungry shadows. Dark figures appeared from the corners of the forest, creatures that moved without sound, that thrived on the despair of men. They came for him in the night, silent and swift as death. But Obaoluwa fought them with the last of his strength, his fists driven by rage and hunger. By the dawn, the shadows were no more, dissolved by the light of his spirit. The third trial was the trial of the bitter water. He found himself at the banks of a poison river, a river that could cleanse or drown depending on the drinker. Many had tried and failed. Their bodies now floated, bloated, reminders of the peril. But Obaoluwa did not drink to quench thirst. He knelt and offered his blood. The river parted for him, a silent acknowledgement of the sacrifice. And then, the trial of the silent watchers. He wandered into a clearing, only to find himself surrounded by eyes. Eyes that watched from every direction, invisible but ever present. These were the souls of the lost, the betrayed, the forgotten. He stood tall, unblinking, unyielding, staring back at them, letting them witness his soul's flame burn. When the morning broke, the eyes faded into the forest, leaving only the echo of their gaze. And through it all, Obaoluwa fought, because there was no other choice. His body, his mind, his very spirit had been stripped bare, and still he marched on. There, under a giant Iroko tree, whose roots gripped the earth like the hands of buried giants, he met them. The spirits, old men without faces, mothers carrying calabashes filled not with water, but with forgotten tears. They circled him like vultures around a dying lion. Obaoluwa fell to his knees, weak, broken, defeated, and the spirit spoke. You seek life, but life does not seek you. You seek love, but love has cast you out. What then do you have left, son of hunters? With a voice rough like dry harmattan wind, Obaoluwa answered, I have only my name, only my breath, only my spirit, stubborn like the mountain. The spirits laughed, a sound like dry bones dancing on stone. And in that cruel laughter they saw a spark, a flame, something the world thought they had buried, but the gods had secretly planted.
The spirits placed before him three paths, the path of forgetting. To lose his memories and live in peace, the path of revenge, to return and burn the village that betrayed him. The path of sacrifice, to become more than a man, but lose everything he ever loved. Obaoluwa stood at the crossroad, heart pounding like a drum of war, and as the first light of dawn dared to creep into the haunted woods, he made his choice. But choices, like debts, must always be paid in blood.
In the land of the living, the villagers slept, but in the land of the spirits, a decision had been made, and choices, like arrows shot from a hunter's bow, cannot return to the hand. Obaoluwa chose the hardest path, the one paved with bones and betrayal. He would sacrifice everything, even himself, to save the village that spat him out like spoiled palm wine. But fate, cruel as a vulture circling a newborn goat, was not finished with him yet. Back in the village, things were no longer the same. The rains refused to fall. The sky cracked but delivered no water, like a promise forgotten. The yam barns grew moldy. The river dried up, twisting like an old woman's bitter mouth.
children fell sick, crops withered. Hunters returned with empty hands and heavier hearts. The elders gathered under the great Iroko tree, scratching their grey beards and blaming witches, spirits, even innocent goats. But deep down, where pride has no voice, they knew the truth. They had banished their blessing. They had cast out their miracle. Meanwhile, another storm brewed. Adesewa's father, once a mighty warrior, returned from the battlefield broken, his leg shattered like a calabash dropped from the heavens. His voice, once loud enough to make trees tremble, now cracked like dry bamboo. With his fall, the pressure grew. The marriage he once opposed had to be rushed. Adesewa, heart torn like a fishing net, was to marry the prince she never wanted. On the darkest night, when even the crickets forgot to sing, the first drum sounded. Doom, doom, doom. It wasn't a drum beaten by human hands. No, it was the heartbeat of destiny itself. Torches lit the hills like stars fallen to earth. Raiders, men whose hearts were colder than grave soil, marched towards the village. The villagers panicked. Spears were sharpened with trembling fingers. Mothers hugged their children close, whispering forgotten prayers. But how can a village fight when it has already killed its greatest shield? And then a rider arrived, draped in silk, smelling of foreign oils. The prince, crowned with pride, wearing a smile slicker than palm oil on fresh fufu. The prince who claimed he came to save them. The prince who came bearing gifts and secrets stitched inside golden words. What the village did not know was this. Adetokunbo, the jealous brother, had already knelt before the prince, plotting like a spider weaving death into silk. The prince's sudden kindness, the marriage's sudden rush, the timing of the enemy's attack, all pieces of a poisoned gourd. But the truth, the truth is like smoke. You can cup your hands around it, but sooner or later, it will rise for all to see. Far away, where the earth kissed the spirit world, Obaoluwa stood, his soul heavy with burdens not yet revealed, his heart beating not for revenge, but for justice. The drums beat faster, the torches burned brighter, the betrayers danced with smiles, but in the shadows, the true king was coming. And when he came, even the gods would hold their breath.
It is easier to fight a lion you can see than a snake hiding in your brother's shadow. Obaoluwa returned, not to the roaring of welcome drums, but to whispers, and knives sharpened behind smiles. Betrayal, sharper than a hunter's spear, awaited him at the gates of home. Obaoluwa entered the village clothed in dust and glory. His skin, toughened like old leather from exile. His eyes, deep pools hiding storms. The people who once spat at his feet now sang his name like praise singers at a king's festival. Hypocrisy wore their faces like a tailor-made agbada. But not everyone welcomed him with song. In the shadows, hidden behind the pillars of the shrine, stood Adetokunbo, Obaoluwa's own blood brother. Jealousy, like termites in a king's palace, eats from the inside out. Adetokonbo was eaten alive by envy. When Obaoluwa was cast away, Adetokonbo had basked in attention, feasting on the scraps of respect left behind. But now the prodigal had returned with the shine of 1,000 stars. And the villagers, fickle as the harmattan wind, rushed to kiss Obaoluwa's dust. It was Adetokonbo who whispered into the ears of the elders, "A man who was banished once can betray again. A man touched by exile carries curses in his blood. Should we trust a warrior forged in strange lands?" And so, as Obaoluwa prepared to defend his people, a dagger was being prepared, not for his enemies, but for his back. What none of the villagers knew was this: Adetokonbo's jealousy was not just for Obaoluwa's return. No, it ran deeper, darker. He had made a pact with the prince of the neighboring village, a pact that had caused the life of a hero and the wound of an innocent. The great war that scarred their lands, the one that had taken fathers, brothers, and sons, was no accident. It was a war stirred by Adetokonbo and the prince. And it was during that war that Adesewa's father was struck down. Her father's pain, her family's agony, all part of the web Adetokonbo had spun in his quest for power. And now, the truth was about to come crashing down on the very day that Adesewa was meant to marry the prince who had always been her enemy, and the man who, with all his pride, would now face the price of betrayal. On the day of the marriage feast, the one that was supposed to mark the union of two warring lands, the secrets burst forth like fire from a collapsed mountain. The elders, the villagers, all heard the truth. Adetokonbo had been the hand that pulled the strings, sending them all to war and causing the rift that destroyed everything they once held dear. But as the truth was revealed, vengeance came swiftly, like an arrow, straight and unyielding. The prince was struck down by his own men, and Adetokonbo. Well, Adetokonbo's heart was full of rage, but empty of remorse. His uncontrollable anger would be the spark that doomed him. Obaoluwa, who slept quietly in his grove, was attacked. And the first blow was not struck by an enemy, but by his own blood. A true king is not crowned by gold, but by the scars he wears. Blood may flow, betrayal may choke the air, but destiny wears armor no blade can pierce. And so, Obaoluwa, the boy they banished, the man they betrayed, rose from the dust once again, to claim what only the gods could give. They left him for dead, broken ribs, bleeding spirit. His blood soaked the sacred grove, flowing into the roots of the Iroko tree, feeding the earth with the warrior's last prayer. But destiny is like yam vine. Even when you cut it, it finds another path to climb. As the last stars blinked in the sky, an old woman appeared from the mist, Mama Iriti, the forgotten seer. She poured herbs on his wounds, she sang the songs that stitch broken spirits, and she spoke words only gods should hear. You are not finished, son of the drums. Rise, for the gods still drum your name. Obaoluwa rose, not as the boy who left, not as the man who returned, but as the storm the village had called down on itself. He swore a blood oath under the Iroko tree. I will reclaim my honor, I will protect the innocent, and I will wash betrayal with truth. Word spread like harmattan fire. Obaoluwa was alive. The boy they buried had become the legend they feared. Adetokonbo had it too, and for the first time, his heart trembled like a rat in a lion's mouth. They met in the heart of the village square, where once they had played as boys. But today, laughter was buried, and only blood would water the earth. Adetokonbo charged, rage blinding him like the noonday sun. Obaoluwa stood, calm, focused, the silence before a hurricane. Lo me, lo. Kick met kick. Old wounds reopened. Old grudges screamed. But in the end, it was Adetokonbo's hatred that made his hands slow. And it was Obaoluwa's love for the land that made him strong. Adetokonbo fell, tears and blood mixing with the dust. Obaoluwa knelt beside him and forgave the unforgivable. The drums that once called for his exile now beat for his crowning. Obaoluwa, son of the soil, betrayed by blood, healed by spirit, rose not just as a king of the people, but as a legend of destiny.